Gyro Gearloose's great idea. It was a cold winter's day on the farm, and Grandma Duck was sitting by the fire, watching with a wistful smile as Donald and his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, zipped across the frozen lake on their skates. They twisted and twirled, their laughter echoing through the crisp air. "How I wish I could skim across the ice like that," Grandma sighed, watching the boys glide gracefully. "But I am too old now. I should fall over if I tried." Her voice was soft with longing as she thought of the days when she used to skate herself. Gyro Gearloose, the inventive genius, was seated beside her. He adjusted his glasses, tapping a finger to his chin, deep in thought. His brain was already at work, calculating the mechanics, figuring out the solution. You could almost hear the faint ticking sound as his gears turned in his mind. "I've got it," Gyro exclaimed, startling Grandma and Gus Goose, who had been dozing by the fire. He dashed to the corner, grabbing a coil of rope. Gus blinked, confused. "What's that for?" Gus asked, scratching his head. "Aha, you'll see," Gyro said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I've got just the thing to help you skate again, Grandma." Gyro wasted no time. He hurried into the kitchen and began cutting the rope into 2 equal lengths. Grandma and Gus exchanged curious glances as Gyro tied one end of each piece to the arms of Grandma Duck's favorite rocking chair. It was a sturdy, worn chair, but Grandma always said it was the comfiest seat in the house. "Gyro, what are you doing?" Gus asked, but Gyro was already busy, attaching pulleys to the ends of the ropes, one on each side of the chair. You'll see," Gyro repeated, his voice practically singing with enthusiasm. He picked up one end of the rope, handed the other to Gus, and told him to pull. "Come on, Gus, we're going for a ride." Gyro grinned, his eyes sparkling with that familiar excitement only Gyro could muster. The 2 of them heaved the rocking chair out into the yard. Grandma Duck raised an eyebrow, but couldn't hide her growing curiosity. "Step aboard, Grandma," Gravo called to her as he and Gus carefully maneuvered the chair into position. Grandma gave a little chuckle and nodded, sitting down in the chair, adjusting her shawl, and smiling up at them. The moment Grandma was seated, Gyro and Gus took their positions at the ropes and began to pull. The chair slid smoothly across the yard, and Grandma's eyes widened with delight. "Goodness me," gasped Clara Cluck, who had been gathering eggs nearby. "What in the world is going on?" "Well," muttered Horace Horsecollar, who was passing by on his way to the barn. He stopped in his tracks, watching the unusual spectacle with wide eyes. "I've never seen anything like it. What will Gyro Gearloose think of next?" Clarabelle Cow wondered aloud, her voice filled with awe. She stood in the doorway of the farmhouse, leaning out to see what was happening. The word was spreading fast. Everyone in the farmyard stopped what they were doing to watch. "Gee up," Grandma cried out with joy, the twinkle in her eye like that of a little girl. Gyro and Gus grinned at each other, pulling the ropes steadily. The rocking chair began to glide across the snow-covered ground, picking up speed. "Hold tight, Grandma," Gus called, his feet sliding on the icy ground. Grandma laughed in delight as the chair zipped along, the wind rushing through her hair, her shawl billowing behind her like a cape. Gus and Gyro kept pulling, laughing as they ran beside the chair, trying to keep up. Out onto the frozen lake they went, the chair skimming across the surface, light and fast. Donald and his nephews, who had been showing off their skating tricks, stopped in their tracks as they saw Grandma rocketing across the ice, her chair spinning in wide circles. They gaped in astonishment. "Grandma," Donald said in disbelief. "What are you doing?" "Having the time of my life, Donald," Grandma called back, laughing. She could feel the thrill of the ice beneath her, the wind on her face, and the freedom she had longed for. "I haven't enjoyed myself so much for years." Huey, Dewey, and Louie couldn't help but laugh, clapping their hands in joy. They skated over to join Grandma, matching her speed as they zoomed along beside her. For a few moments, the whole world seemed to fade away, and it was just Grandma, Gyro, Gus, and the boys enjoying the winter wonderland together. After a while, Gyro and Gus slowed the chair to a gentle stop near the far side of the lake. Grandma, cheeks rosy from the cold, hopped out of the chair, still grinning from ear to ear. "That was amazing," she said, her eyes sparkling with joy. "You're welcome, Grandma," Gyro said with a proud grin, brushing snow off his jacket. Gus puffed out his chest, equally proud of their invention. Back at the farmhouse, the excitement continued. The farm animals gathered around, eager to hear about Grandma's adventure on the ice. But there was one thing left to do. Grandma, ever the gracious host, beamed at Gyro and Gus and led them inside to the warmth of the kitchen. She pulled out 2 giant slices of her famous chocolate cake, one for each of them. "Now, after all that work, you two deserve a real reward," she said, slicing the cake thick and generous. Gus and Gyro exchanged satisfied glances as they dug in, savoring the sweetness of the cake and the success of their latest invention. The day ended with laughter and full bellies. As the whole farm seemed to agree, Gyro Gearloose had once again found a way to make the impossible happen. And Grandma Duck, well, she couldn't remember the last time she'd had so much fun.